In this video, we're going to use a virtual manipulative here to explore what happens when you increase and decrease the mean and the standard deviation of a normal curve, and then we're going to answer some problems. So let's pull up that virtual manipulative right now using Geogebra. So here we are in Geogebra. We have a normal distribution, and we have a couple sliders that we could change. So this slider is the mu, it's the mean of this normal curve, and I'm going to increase it. And as you can see, that normal curve, the orange one, we could focus on that, it shifts to the right because that mean is getting higher. It's larger, it's increasing. And if we shift it lower than 0, you can see it goes to the left and it decreases. So all it does is shift to the left and to the right when we increase and decrease the mean. Nothing else changes on it. I'm going to put it back in the center. I've got sigma here, and I'm going to increase it, and we got to figure out what happens to that normal curve. If we increase the standard deviation, that data is going to get spread out more, right? There's more deviation, so you can see that the normal curve will get wider. But then also that peak in the middle, that goes down, it decreases, because if you're going to pull out the edges, the left and the right side, you can't just keep that peak in the center like right where it was, like at 0.4. You're going to have to drop it down, or it naturally just gets pulled down. So then if we decrease the standard deviation, means that data is less spread out. You could see the ends get pulled closer to the middle. It's not as wide, it's narrower, but then also that peak gets pulled to the top. It gets higher up there. So that changes too. So keep in mind, when you increase the standard deviation, not only does it get wider, that peak adjusts too, it gets lower. And then when you pull it down, you decrease it, that spread it's closer together to the center, but then that peak increases as well. And then even if you have a lower standard deviation where it's not as spread out, you can still change the mean. You can shift it to the right, you can shift it to the left to decrease it, and just see how that normal distribution adjusts when you change the mean and the standard deviation. So question 1 wants us to draw a normal curve with the same mean and a lower standard deviation. So because the mean is going to stay the same, I'm going to keep it right in the middle. I'm going to draw the vertical line directly down the center of my original normal curve. But my standard deviation needs to be lower. So now that data is going to be closer together. It's not going to be as spread out. That means it's going to push the peak higher. So when I start drawing my peak, it's got to go up much higher. And then that data, the curve, is going to be pulled closer together. So that spread, like here and here, isn't going to be as far out as the original blue normal curve. So that would be the same mean and a lower standard deviation. Question 2 says that we have the same mean. So I'll put that vertical line down the middle again, represents the same mean, but we have a higher standard deviation, means that data is going to be more spread out. So when we pull the ends of the normal curve outwards, that's going to drop that peak lower, and then my data is going to be farther spread out. It's going to be wider. So you can see my green one is not very symmetrical there, but it should be. That's just my error. However, that peak is lower, and then that data is further spread out. That will represent the higher standard deviation. And then question 3, our mean is lower. So now we want to shift that center to the left. So I'm going to put that vertical line a little bit to the left, but that standard deviation is going to be the same. So we don't want to make it wider. We don't want to make it more narrower. We want to keep it the same. So what you can do is kind of follow that peak all the way to the left there and make sure it doesn't get higher or lower. And then you could do your best to draw your normal curve right there, and you can see that the mean shifts to the left, so it's decreasing, and then that standard deviation is it's staying the same. It's not getting wider, it's not getting narrower. We got to keep that peak at that same height. So if you're still having trouble understanding this, I would go back to this virtual manipulative here and just mess around with the sliders, shift it left and right, increase, decrease the different characteristics, and just see how that normal curve will adjust as you adjust those sliders.